Welcome back, everybody, to Niners Now. I'm your host, Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. You can follow me there. And today, I am recapping the Niners joint practice with the Broncos on Thursday. We've also got a new 49er on the roster. And, of course, stick around until later in the show because I want to talk about some of the biggest risers and biggest fallers of training camp so far in my roster ranking review. But before we begin, go ahead and subscribe down below, leave a like, leave a comment, and let's get into it. So to begin, the Niners announced on Thursday that they have released cornerback Eli Apple and signed defensive tackle Michael Dwumfour. Now, Dwumfour spent some time with the team back in the 2022 season. He played 2 games towards the end of the year, but for the most part in his career, he has bounced all around the league. He's played for the Jets, the Niners, the Browns, the Bears, the Titans, and the Texans. Dwumfour worked out for the team on Wednesday with a group of other defensive tackles, and it seems like he won the spot. The Niners like to have at least 8 healthy D tackles on this roster, and with Kevin Givens injuring his pec, and of course an injury that we just found out about Jordan Elliott, the team was down to only 6, so they needed to bring in Dwumfour to boost those healthy numbers. Also, John Lynch was on KNBR radio before practice on Thursday. He dropped some pretty interesting 49ers news. He said he's not expecting Brandon Ayuk to be ready for week 1, but Ayuk has been rehabbing well. There's still no official timetable for BA to return, but honestly, the fact that there's even conversations about him coming back for week 1 is a good sign, in my opinion. If the rehab is going as well as they say it is, then my personal guess is that he starts the year on the PUP list and comes back week 6, which would be after the mini bye week that the Niners get for playing the Rams on Thursday night. Still no update on Jawan Jennings from John Lynch, although he did say that they're trying to play it slow with him because calf injuries sort of tend to linger. And I also think part of that calf injury might be the fact that he hasn't gotten his extension yet. Just my personal take on it. But in better news, Lynch has been super impressed with the rookie class, Mykel Williams and Upton Stout in particular. Lynch compared Stout to his former teammate, the Hall of Fame cornerback Rondé Barber. That is huge praise. Barber was an absolute menace. I hope Stout could even have half the career that Rondé Barber did. I swear, if there was an award for most praise from the coaching staff and the fellow players, Upton Stout would win that award easily. He's gotten all sorts of love, and I cannot wait to see Stout play on Saturday night, hopefully. Now, let's get to what you all want to hear about, right? Broncos joint practice was yesterday on Thursday. It was not the best day for the 49ers, especially early on. Nick Bosa and Kyle Juszczyk returned to practice, but Jair Brown was still not practicing, and neither was Jordan Elliott, Jordan James, Chaz Surratt, and Fabian Moreau. All those guys were out. We know that Elliott is dealing with some back issues. Apparently he's going to be back next week, though, which is good. Jordan James, unfortunately, broke his finger. He's going to get surgery, and he will miss a couple of weeks, according to Kyle Shanahan. Hopefully he'll be back in time, at least for preseason week 3, or at the bare minimum, week 1. The biggest news of the day, though, injury-wise or otherwise, Mykel Williams injured his knee in the 11-on-11 period on Thursday. He walked off to the locker room under his own power, which is good, but he was clearly favoring that left leg. Kyle Shanahan said that Mykel, quote, had a good exam in the locker room, so hopefully he just hyperextended it. Mykel won't play Saturday night, according to Shanahan, but he's expected to miss about a week, although they are still doing tests to make sure they know exactly what's up with Mykel's knee. Either way, this is a pretty tough update on the injury front. Mykel got pretty much all the first-team reps all offseason long. He's your first-round pick, 11th overall. He's expected to be a starter, 3-down player. I've said it on the show, he's a big part of this team's plans going forward. And if he misses an extended period of time, that could be a big issue for San Francisco. So keep an eye out for more Mykel Williams injury updates. Unfortunately, the tough news didn't stop there for San Francisco. The Broncos came out firing to start practice on Thursday. Their defense in particular was smothering. There were multiple sacks and interceptions on Purdy across the multiple different periods of practice. They stifled the run game early. The Broncos defense was just spectacular on Thursday. And the offense looked quite good too. Bo Nix hit some big throws downfield, and he even got Nick Bosa to jump off sides a couple of times with that hard count. Looks like the trenches for the Broncos in particular were dominant. We didn't have, all the defensive linemen playing for the 49ers for the first team, and we didn't have all the offensive linemen playing for the 49ers on the first team either, but you can't make excuses, right? You got who you got, and the Broncos were the better team today pretty comfortably. It wasn't Brock Purdy's best day either. He faced a ton of pressure. He was spotty with his accuracy, had a couple overthrows, and he struggled, especially early on. But as practice continued, both Purdy and the offense started to settle in. Once the Niners hit the move the ball period, as they like to call it, the offense really started to pick up some steam. Ricky Pearsall beat Patrick Surtain and Jahdae Barron on the way to a 30-plus yard touchdown catch from Purdy. Barron had great coverage on that touchdown play, but Purdy dropped it right on Ricky's shoulder for the score. On that drive as well, McCaffrey broke out for a nice run, and George Kittle had a chunk gain as well. Demarcus Robinson also had a touchdown late in practice during the 2-minute drill period, but the real standout from the 49ers offense was rookie receiver Jordan Watkins. Now, the receivers higher up on the depth chart, like Pearsall and like Robinson, didn't get a ton of the opportunities. It looked like the Niners were being careful with who they gave their reps to. So Watkins got an increased workload, and he looked unguardable on Thursday. I saw a report that he did lose a rep to Riley Moss, but beyond that, it seemed like he was torching everybody, whether that's depth corner Joshua Pickett, who Watkins beat deep with late separation for a touchdown. He also beat Jahdae Barron, and he also beat Patrick Surtain on a slant for a touchdown in the red zone period. He was easily the bright spot today. He had smooth routes, he had nice catches, and he was showing off the speed with both the first team and the second team offenses. For some other notes on the offense, both Kittle and Ricky Pearsall showed off a couple of wins against Surtain. That was one of our key matchups to see who could match up against Surtain and who could beat Surtain. And it looks like both Kittle and Ricky Pearsall did. But Surtain had some good reps too. He beat Ricky on the very first rep of 1v1s, and he beat Demarcus Robinson in that red zone period, the 2-minute drill period that I referenced, where Robinson ended up catching a touchdown. Also, another note on the offense, Spencer Burford started at left tackle during team drills. Looked like a veteran rest day for Trent Williams. On the defensive side, the Niners ran pretty low on defensive tackles. Like I mentioned, both Elliott and Givens were out. They had to bring in Dwumfor. So the first team defensive line looked like this. They had Nick Bosa, Mykel Williams, Kalia Davis, and CJ West. Kalia did not have a great day. Sebastian Valdez rotated in with the second team, him and Alfred Collins. I believe that's the first time that Valdez has done so. And Dallas Flowers got the start opposite Deommodore Lenoir with Upton Stout in the slot. Flowers had an all right day. He gave up a catch to Cortland Sutton, I believe, but Sutton's a good receiver, and Flowers has showed off his speed. He can really run with the deep ball. Fred Warner and D. Winters had some really nice coverage reps. Winters is looking the part so far. He's got sideline to sideline speed. He flies around. He's got incredible contact. He's hitting dudes. His development has been a process for the last couple of years, as Niner fans may remember, but it looks like he's really starting to blossom, and that's something to be excited about. D. Winters is a coverage specialist at linebacker. Upton Stout also had a pick versus Troy Franklin in 1v1s. It was a nice play to really outmuscle Franklin, who's significantly bigger than him. Stout also had the first tackle on the first play of team drills, and he and Deommodore Lenoir got into a bit of a shouting match and a bit of a shoving match with the Broncos offense after that play. I love the energy from Stout. He was sticky all day long, and he's been an absolute gem so far. Speaking of gems, CJ West beat All-Pro guard Quinn Miners for a sack in team drills, although Miners did get him a couple of times in the run game. Miners, of course, is an excellent guard, maybe one of the best in the entire league. So this was great competition for CJ West, and it's nice to see West get a little sack on the All-Pro there. Alfred Collins continues to improve pretty steadily. He did his job in team drills, I thought, held up against the run, but he also had a nice win versus Denver's backup Calvin Throckmorton in 1v1s. What a name, by the way, Calvin Throckmorton, geez. Like the Niners offense, the defense also settled in as practice started to go along. In particular, that move the ball period is where the Niners defense started to light it up. Nick Bosa and Bryce Huff had some really nice wins against Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey, especially in that move the ball period when the Niners defense got a convincing stop on Knicks and the Broncos offense. Mykel Williams also looked pretty good, very stout in the run game, especially against Mike McGlinchey before, unfortunately, he did get hurt. Jake Moody today also went 8 for 8 on his kicks. Now, some of them were a little bit dicey. Niner fans know many Jake Moody kicks are just inside the upright. They really scare you. But like the rest of the team, Moody got better and better the more he kicked. And his last kick, his number 8, was a 53-yard make to end the move the ball period. So we are officially through the first joint practice of the summer. The Broncos definitely won the day, but there are some silver linings. Jordan Watkins, Upton Stout looked great. Ricky Pearsall beating Surtain. There's good things to take away from this practice. But all the focus now shifts to Saturday night, 5:30 Pacific time, when the Broncos play the Niners in week 1 of the preseason. Kyle Shanahan said on Thursday that he's not going to play many of the starters on Saturday. Specifically, he said this, quote, "Doesn't mean we'll rest all 22, but don't expect to see a lot out there," end quote. And here's a fun story. Offensive coordinator Clay Kubiak will be calling the plays for the Niners offense on Saturday. I doubt they'll let Kubiak break out any of the crazy plays, but it should be fun to see how it goes. So we are coming up on week 1 of the preseason, and we finished the roster ranking series. So now feels like a good time to go through those rankings and update them. Who's rising and who's falling? Nearly every player moves at least one spot, but a lot of these moves have more to do with the Niners adding more talent to this roster, as opposed to these players playing better or worse than they were before. And of course, there are some guys that I just flat out overrated and underrated, so they've been moved accordingly. But there's also players that have really surprised me, both positively and negatively. And those are the guys I'm most interested in for today's stock report. Now, I won't bury the lead here. There's one guy who moved up way more than anyone else on this list. It's Russell Gage. Gage was ranked all the way down at number 70 on my initial list, and he is up 39 spots now at number 31. Kyle Shanahan said on Thursday in his presser that Gage is back to being a really good NFL receiver, and we've seen that in training camp. He's been ridiculously impressive, easily one of the biggest stories on the team in my opinion, and he's getting close to a lock for the 53-man roster. I was not a Gage believer heading into camp, but he's completely proven me wrong. I've got Gage now ranked ahead of Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins, and I honestly think if this impressive play continues, we're going to see Gage have a role in this offense to start the year. You've got no Ayuk, potentially no Demarcus Robinson, potentially no Juwan Jennings. Russell Gage might be a starter come week 1. Speaking of week 1 starters, I know the third linebacker spot isn't a guaranteed starter like it used to be with the rise of nickel defenses, but if the Niners do run base formations, Luke Gifford is going to be out on that field. He's been a surprise for me as well. I thought he'd be a nice depth option who would primarily play special teams, but he's shown that he's a reliable player and deserves chances to play on defense as well. I had Gifford moving up 11 spots from 38 all the way up to 27. Now, this next guy is almost certainly not going to be a starter, but I wanted to show some love to defensive tackle Sebastian Valdez. I haven't talked about him too much on the show so far, and I ranked him as one of the worst players on the team on my initial list, all the way down at number 89. But Valdez has jumped up 12 spots, up to 77, because of his impressive build combined with his great get-off and his effectiveness in one-on-one drills. He's become a guy that I think the Niners might not be able to sneak on their practice squad if they do end up cutting him. Valdez was running with the Niners' second-team defensive line in joint practice on Thursday, as I mentioned before. I was sleeping on Valdez heavily, but that is definitely over now. Before we move on to the guys who are falling down the rankings, I just wanted to quickly shout out 2 other big risers at the cornerback position. Jacob Robinson is up 25 spots, going from bottom 10 on the team all the way up to number 62. And Dallas Flowers jumped 32 spots all the way up to 47. Both of these guys have really put themselves on the map in training camp. And while I'm personally still not sold on either of them as starters, they've made pretty strong cases for a 53-man roster spot. Now, unfortunately, it is not all sunshine and rainbows, right? There's a couple of guys who I rated much too high, and they got to come down. That's going to start with the second-round pick, Alfred Collins. I think the injury that kept him out of minicamp and the contract dispute that kept him out of OTAs, they've really affected Collins. He's clearly a step behind the rest of the rookies. and that should be fine for the long term. I mean, I still believe in his talent. He's a good player, but I had him ranked in the top 20 players on this team, and I just don't think that'll be the case this year. I moved Collins down 16 spots, all the way down to number 34. Also moving down 16 spots is fellow defensive tackle Evan Anderson. I was really ready for Anderson to take a big step and break out this training camp, but it just hasn't happened at all. I'm not sure if he showed up out of shape or if last year was kind of a fluke or what the deal is, but Anderson's barely taken any reps with the first team defense and has not been a standout in 1v1 drills at all. I mean, we saw Thursday in joint practice, we saw CJ West and Kalia Davis get the first team reps. We saw Alfred Collins and Sebastian Valdez get the second team reps. Anderson's not getting reps over any of those guys right now. It's not a good sign. I still think he's a good player, and I would expect him to make the 53, but I think I definitely overestimated him in my initial list. I've got Anderson all the way down at number 39 right now. So we had Collins, who missed the early part of the offseason that put him on the back foot. And we had Anderson, who was someone I expected a breakout from, and I probably overrated him a bit because of that. But the next guy on this list here, it's just someone who I thought was rated fairly, but he's been a pretty big disappointment so far in camp. It's cornerback Trey Brown. Brown was ranked number 39 on my initial list, and it seemed like he was the perfect candidate for the fourth cornerback spot, which we've talked about a bunch on this show. But then Renardo Green got hurt, and Brown gets absolutely demolished on the outside, and he's lost a ton of ground, right, in two competitions. He's lost ground against Dallas Flowers in the outside corner competition, and in my mind, he's completely lost the nickel competition to Upton Stout. Brown has been one of the bigger disappointments on the entire team and have dropped him 9 spots down to number 48. I think Brown's 53-man roster spot is far from guaranteed. I think he's probably still got one at this point, but if he wants to lock one in, he's going to need a big preseason. Now, the last two guys on my list here, these are both guys who I think I was just a little too high on. More my fault than their fault. I had Equanimous St. Brown and Jonathan Garvin just too high on my initial list. I dropped St. Brown 13 spots to number 68 and Garvin down 14 spots to number 85. Neither have really shown any flashes in practice so far. And while there is still time for them to turn it around, it's clear that these are back of the roster guys. And now my list accurately reflects that. So that's it for this episode. Let me know what you thought of the first joint practice of the summer by commenting down below. As always, leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know if there's any topics you'd like to see me cover. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for 49ers videos 5 days a week. I'm Brady Grustas at GrustasBrady on X. This has been Niners Now, and I'll see you tomorrow.